Good Saturday morning, YouTube. Well, actually, it's afternoon now because I've been doing this for a little while. So I'm going to start up the engine here in a minute. But first, let me explain what I've been doing between yesterday to today, up until this point. So yesterday, I came out here twice or maybe 3 times, I'm not sure. Each time I turned over the engine for a few seconds. Did it 3 times in a row, so that's a total of, I don't know, 6 or 9 engine starts yesterday. Just cleaning over and over and trying to get all this Berryman Chemtool B12 kind of dried up out of here at the same time while cleaning. And then this morning I started the engine over, I guess 3 more times, and then I stuck this tube down into each cylinder, and I can actually feel when that tube goes all the way down and hits the top of the cylinder, and then when I go to pump it, it'll kind of have trouble sucking. But if I pull it up just like a little bit, then it'll pump a lot easier, so I know that I'm all the way down there on top of those pistons. I didn't get anything to pump out of the pistons except for cylinder number 2. Had just a few drops, that was it. So that tells me it's nice and dry. But just to make sure, I cranked the engine over a couple more times just to make sure it's dry. I also placed my hands here so I could feel like how moist it is while I had somebody else turn over the engine for me. And I mean, you can see stuff spraying out to about this high, but it's mostly just dirt and junk in there. It wasn't really that much liquid. The other night when I first started turning over the engine, man, that liquid would shoot out and hit up here. So when it was really full of liquid. And it sounded different too. You can just hear the liquid. So yeah, you got to make sure it's pretty dry before you put all the spark plugs back in and start it up. Before I installed the new ruthenium spark plugs, that didn't go where I wanted it to. I took a rag and cleaned on top of the valve cover here before installing the spark plugs and coil packs. I didn't really get down into the spark plug wells that much. Rag would only reach so far, plus spark plugs went in no problem, so it seems fine. I made another video this morning too on installing these boots and springs and putting the dielectric grease into these boots. So that dielectric grease goes basically between the spring and the boot and the tops of the spark plugs. So you can watch that video if you need to know how to install the new boots and springs. So then I tightened the spark plugs down to 18 foot-pounds. That's the torque spec on a 2A ZFE engine. Then put on the coil packs. Those are all tightened down to 80 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. Then you plug in your wiring harnesses back in. Put the fuel pump relay back in, put the ignition 2 fuse back in. The only other thing you need to know, the 2 bolts that go on the cover here, on top of the valve cover, those are going to be 62 inch-pounds. And on this model, with the 16-inch rims, it's SE trim, the wheels get torqued down to 76 inch-pounds if you have your front passenger wheel off there to look at the crank pulley. If you have a different size wheel, different trim, the lug nut torque might be a different specification. Alright, so the only thing left to do is start it up, let it run for a few minutes. It might smoke, it might run a little rough at first because it's probably going to still have some cleaner in there that has to get burnt off. After it gets back to running smooth, turn it off, do a fresh oil change, put our leftover Berryman B12 Chemtool in the gas tank, take it for a test drive and test out the new spark plugs. Alright, so let's go start it up. I might have drained the battery too much. Plus, I forgot to prime the fuel pump a few times too and make sure it gets some gas going in there. Let me try that. But the battery might be too dead. So to prime the fuel pump, you just turn the ignition to the on position for a few seconds, then back off. And just do that a few times. It'll prime some fuel from the fuel pump to the injectors. Alright, let's try it again. If it doesn't start, then I'm probably going to need a jump start. I probably drained the battery too much. Yep, the battery's too weak. Guess I should have thought of that earlier.